It is horrible that nations are fighting for their cultural rights. However, we are the ones who completely disregard Aboriginal cultural rights. This is ridiculous. Aboriginals found the land we live on today. Taylor believes that equal recognition among a population leads to a healthy, functioning society. This allows all groups to recognize the benefits that other cultures and groups can contribute to a country's identity. With the Zulu argument, Taylor articulates that equality is not shown.
During the late 19th century, the Zulu warriors were considered third-class citizens and were constantly oppressed by discrimination. During this time, the Zulus were denied their human rights. This was caused due to their perceived but false superiority of the Europeans. Why do Europeans think they're better than the Zulus? What makes them any different? Just because the Zulus' values differ from those of the Europeans, that does not mean they should be denied their basic human equality. The standards implicitly and unconsciously cram their cultures, beliefs, and values into others. We can compare this to the Aboriginals because Europeans also took advantage of them and gave them no recognition for their contributions. However, they had no problem using the land which was founded by those same Aboriginals.
Taylor makes a huge emphasis on Canada's education system. He believes that in order to address cultural rights in Canada, education in both secondary and post-secondary must be updated and altered. First, secondary school must attempt to develop a diverse curriculum which acknowledges different cultures, beliefs, and values. Post-secondary education demands to enlarge, alter, and eliminate the social norms and conformity. For example, the majority of well-known accredited authors are Caucasian males. We need to get rid of this cookie-cutter mentality of intelligence. There are many other brilliant people in the world who are not white males. If we take feminist attitudes, as Taylor says, they internalize inferiority, which leads to low self-esteem. This relates back to the idea that natives have low self-esteem and feel inferior to the Europeans who took over their land.
If we look again at the Aboriginal population and their quality of education, it was evident that they were not given an equal opportunity to learn. In the past, residential schools were often used to aggressively force them to conform to our so-called Canadian norms. Why was that okay? Nobody should be stripped of their language, culture, or heritage, nor should they have had to endure unjust and obscured circumstances. Why should their cultural rights be taken? They should not have to be stripped of their own culture to be considered a Canadian citizen, because after all, they were the original inhabitants of our nation. This is racist and imperialist, and it also shows the urgent need for Canadian equal rights.
Native references both the patchwork quilt and the billard ball to describe our rights within society. The patchwork quilt model says, Canada is more like three entities, stitched together, French, English, and Native. Our patchwork rights culture is what distincts us as individual people. On the other hand, the billard ball is the concept in which all should be treated the same. It does not recognize individuality. In this concept, citizens are like balls. For the game to work fairly, every individual must be round and smooth as every other. The patchwork quilt reference should be held superior, as every culture is different, and therefore no individual will directly be the same, which is what the billard ball concept articulates.
Taylor says everyone should be recognized because recognition plays a prominent role in building an identity. He then continues to say that individuals' ability to achieve their goals are restricted due to the constant social hierarchies and stereotypes, but I think he's wrong. Each individual has the ability to do anything that they want, no matter their culture, values, or background. Culture does not bind or restrict you from doing what you really want to do.
Ignatieff makes a comparison, which I believe to be absurd. He compares the French rights to the Aboriginals. I do not believe this is a strong comparison. How in any way is the French being humiliated comparable to the Aboriginals having their rights stripped from them in order to be considered a Canadian citizen? The French were humiliated by the fact they were the majority in their province. However, the linguistic minority, being the English, were running their province. However, this does not compare to the Aboriginals legitimately being stripped of their rights. The French people's rights are not being taken, however, they are just being humiliated, in contrast to the Aboriginals, who are forced to take up new cultural rights.
Why should Aboriginals be fighting for the rights when they were the first to found this land? Why should the Zulu warriors be denied human rights? The answer is plain and simple. They shouldn't have to. Just because they hold separate values that contradict those of Europeans, it does not make them inferior, however, just different. This is why we believe the patchwork quilt is a better reference made by IGNIF, because nobody is the same, like a billiard ball, and they should not be looked down upon if their identity is not the same as one another.
This ties into the education component of why we need to educate society to get rid of this cookie cutter ideology. Because not everyone has to conform to one standard. Why should anybody have to give up their culture to be considered a Canadian citizen? After all, they found the land first, and now we are making them conform to a certain cultural right.